welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. This is the place where we take a no bullshit look at life's little lessons. Here, together, we find the spiritual glory in even the most wicked hard story. This is a journey from fear back to love and how we can find our greatest strength and happiness in some of the most unlikely places. I believe that if you're willing to change your mind, you can totally change your life. So, are you ready to rewrite your story and choose to live free? Let's do this. Hey, you guys, let me just tell you, I don't know what episode this is going to be. It might be 25, it might be 26. I don't know what we're going to do. All I know is I'm wicked excited today because the dude on my show today is truly, first of all, hey, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. You can hear my big mouth. You know it's me, you guys. But here's the thing. Zach has been on my radar for a long time. So I feel like my brother is at a disadvantage today because I probably know way more about him than he knows about me because he is one of my bona fide heroes alive on the planet today. You guys who know me, you know how I feel about animals. I've been a vegan for over 16 years. I'm an animal advocate. I fucking love animals. Dogs, I always say animals are one of my fastest pathways to God. There's no complication in my love for them and their love for me. It's just easy peasy. And so Zach has been, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Zach and then I'm going to let the man speak for himself. But Zach started a nonprofit called Marley's Mutts Dog Rescue. And it's, with my accent, it's Marley's, but there's an I in there somewhere. Okay.
I love your version the best.
Marley's Mutts Dog Rescue, which often also has these offshoots, which is like the Miracle Mutts. He has a ranch out in around Bakersfield, California area. I used to hang out in Bakersfield quite a bit when I lived in California. He also has an incredible program that has become near and dear to my heart too, called the Pawsitive Change Program, where he pairs up dogs that are on death row with inmates in prisons, and they help to rehabilitate both the men and the dogs. And he also just started a new program with juvenile girls, which the juvenile program, which I have so much to say about that. He's a proud dad of his beautiful little daughter. He's also, she's the best. He's also got a beautiful, gorgeous wife who is also involved in rescue, but she's also a genius real estate agent, Heather Skow. And Zach just has a really powerful story too. And you know me, like my programs and spiritual mentoring, it's all like your story to your glory and stepping into the fearless flow. Talk about story to your glory. I'm going to let Zach tell you that story himself. But it's a really, really powerful story. And I'm just wicked honored. You can tell I'm really jazzed. I'm really excited to have Zach here because he's doing important shit in the world. He is standing up and having a voice for the voiceless. He's creating change. His own story is like a comeback kid story, a Rocky story. You know how I feel about the champ and rooting for the underdogs. And if there was ever an underdog story, it is Zach and Marley's Mutts in this whole thing. So you guys, welcome to the program. My brother, who I'm way more familiar with him than he is with me, so I apologize if I'm stepping over any boundaries, Zach. But you guys, Zach Skow, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Yeah, that was the greatest introduction in the history of introductions. But I have been following you, and we talked about this like a year ago when you said, or maybe even more, when you said when you get your podcast up, you got to have me on, and I've definitely been game. I've been wanting to get on this for a while, so I'm excited.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. And I think, one of the things I was thinking about this, I try to. Like most of my podcast episodes, it's just me. They're solo shows and only once a month. So this is like prime real estate. Once a month, I invite somebody on who I think is wicked cool, who I think is doing powerful and important and impactful work in the world, who I think is just a hell of a human being and has a power, like a spiritual leaning to them and has an incredible story. And so I don't want to speak for you, but the basis, I'll just set you up for it. So the basis, my understanding of your story, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you had some drug and alcohol addiction and use and abuse, I guess we would say. And the doctors were like, you were in like end stage liver failure. And you had like 90 days to live. And one of the precepts is that you wanted to stay alive and become eligible for a recipient to be a donor. You had to like get your ass in gear and move your body and bring your body back to a place where your body could actually receive a liver. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that became the inspiration for Marley's Mutts?
Yeah, it was the whole inspiration for Marley's Mutts. I started working in animal welfare in 2003. Rescued my pack. So Marley, who came from the Mojave Animal Shelter, Tug and Mojave Animal Shelter, and then Buddy, I trapped at Rosamond Elementary School in 2003. And then I started working for the Humane Society just with their large dog foster program. This is in the early 2000s, just helping them get that up and running. Really just trying to put some sort of like title on my life. I had no real job. I was bouncing from job to job, kind of weaseling off my dad the best that I could, and really just woefully addicted to alcohol and drugs. Really, really badly. I was I was an everyday drinker, and then I became a 24-hour a day drinker in 2003 when I got in a really bad car accident. And my liver started to in 2008. My liver started to fail. I started to turn yellow, and my belly started to fill up with this. 9 months pregnant, and I'm started to leak blood from both ends, and didn't know what was wrong with me, but knew it was probably alcohol related. I went to the doctor, and they took one look at my results and said, "You're in liver failure, and you need to go to a hospital immediately."
Wow, dude.
I didn't go. I lied about it. I kept myself out of the hospital for as long as possible. I tanned in the sun. I wore sunglasses. I wore baggy clothes. I taped my herniated belly button to my stomach so that you couldn't see it poking through my t-shirt.
Dude, like this is high level functioning denial, right? Like we're just not going to face the facts that we're slowly destroying ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to hear about it? I remember it vividly.
I do want to hear about it.
I tried to convince the nurses that it was just because I was on a bender the night before or for the week before, and they said, "No, that's not how liver tests work. But it's not how blood tests work. This is these tests are an indication of your liver wellness, and your liver is failing, and you're not going to be alive for very long." And because I knew that meant no alcohol in my life, my mind wouldn't let me contemplate it. No part of me paused on, "Welp, this is my chance to get better. Welp, I better go to recovery, or I better stop drinking." It was, if anything, I doubled down. It was like,
dude! Yeah, I find that fascinating. So now that you have some time and some insight and some wisdom about your own behavior, right? What do you think that was? Was it really just the fear of, well, getting my shit together means that I got to stop drinking? Like you just didn't want to stop drinking? Were you?
No, it was that I had no identity without alcohol. So, I'll never forget, I've been through some abusive scenarios as a child, some sexually abusive scenarios that occurred for a number of years, which combined to just have me be very nervous around women, paralyzingly so, just nervous in especially intimate situations. And I was a handsome kid, and
wait, did you just say you were a handsome kid?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
dude, have you looked in the mirror? Because I don't think much has changed.
Well, the thing was that back then I couldn't meet up to the expectations. The older girls wanted to date me, and all my family and friends thought that I should be with so and so and be doing this and that, and I didn't have the confidence. I couldn't feel comfortable. I was terrified. I was utterly terrified around women in intimate situations, and I didn't know why. I thought there was something wrong with me. Not able to trace it back to all that trauma from at a younger age, which now it makes 1,000% sense, and really it's helped me heal and move on. I don't even really think about it anymore. It was something that occurred for several years of my life, and at a pivotal stage hormonally and developmentally, and right as you're coming into puberty, it's very strange to have all those things happen to you and not really know what's going on. And think of also it's difficult for people who've been through sexual trauma that's not overtly intercourse related, like unless someone raped you, so it's difficult to identify exactly what happened to you. And also the stigma, the word is so stigmatized, sexual abuse or molestation. And particularly this occurred with someone who was very close to us, and I didn't want to think of that person as a molester, or me as a
Right,
molested
sure.
kid. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't want to think of myself as molested. And but it wasn't until I was able to connect on that with a therapist, and where they kind of went, are you not seeing this? And I just kind of went, what? And then they explained it all, and it made 1,000% sense. And just
Sure.
discovering that kind of was a true epiphany. It was like the first day of the rest of my life, and I've since been able to enjoy a very intimate relationship with my wife without a lot of the problems that I used to have. Just, I felt like I was going to have a heart attack every time I was intimate,
Dude,
a
I
bona-fide heart attack.
totally hear you, and I feel for you on so many levels. And I think, it's so fascinating. I can relate on a lot of levels. It wasn't a situation that went on for years, but there were lots of incidences, a ton of sexual harassment, a lot of and like you said, like that word sexual assault, like if it's not, like you said, like actual penetration or molestation or like certain rape or whatever the thing is, it can be really hard to label it. And I remember working with a woman who, because my childhood trauma, I don't know what you know or don't know about me, but my mom was murdered when I was 12 years old, and I had a really intense childhood. And so my body developed irritable bowel syndrome. That's how, like, everything went to my gut. Like you went to drugs or alcohol or whatever, like all my stress and stuff just went like in on myself. And I remember talking with a woman recently who said to me, you had a lot of trauma as a child. And I remember being like surprised. I was like, what? She was like, yeah, you were traumatized as a kid. And I was like what? And I go downstairs and I say it to my sweetie, and he looks at me like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, right? Like,
Yeah.
But I think part of it too is like exactly what you said, like not wanting to wear the label of like being a traumatized kid, or being a kid that was molested, or being a kid with a dead, murdered mother, or being whatever how the world would look at us. But the way that we looked at ourselves, like when you say I had no identity without alcohol, that is like so powerful to me, because I think getting Marley and then kind of working into Marley's Mutts dog rescue, and like, dude, you've rescued over, like, at this point, over 5,000 dogs, which is incredible. But now you have a sense of self and you have a sense of purpose with the dogs. Do you think that that's really what the heartbeat of that was? Like,
100%.
yeah.
There was a big difference between life with purpose and life without purpose, definitely. I just meandered through life as a like chronic failure, like a perennial letdown for a long time, with no purpose. I mean, I could have been rubbed out at any time and it really wouldn't have made a difference. Probably would have been a relief to my family. So yeah, to have found something that I legitimately am passionate about, and that helps me get up every day and can take me away from all of the narrative that's going on in my mind, is very special and helpful. Definitely. I need to have something I'm working towards. I need to have something that I'm plotting towards, something that I'm fighting for. It's really important for me to have something that I'm fighting for in order to like maintain my sanity.
Yeah, I think, there's so many layers here, man. There's so many layers here. And I think one of the things when you're talking about needing to be purposeful, to me, you and push back if this doesn't feel true for you, but it feels when you said it, it just kind of landed in me. And I'm like, dog rescue and the positive change program and having something to fight for and all these things, it's because it's like this, it's like this hybrid of like fighting for your own life. Like, this is how you take a stand for yourself, as being purposeful in the world. But it's also, I see this as almost like a spiritual practice for you. Like how some people might meditate or pray or do contemplative practices or like whatever the thing is. It feels to me like loving dogs, rehabilitating dogs, helping incarcerated men, helping people change their own narratives and changing the narratives as a society writes about particular people. To me, it feels like a spiritual practice for you. Does any of that feel?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it 100% is in a pretty rudimentary, but also kind of pathetic. I don't want to say I'm pathetic, but there are certain elements of my psyche, personality defects of character, if you will. I get very hung up on my lack of self-worth. I can have the most incredible wife in the world, and a daughter I don't deserve, and incredible family, and be talking to you right now and all those things. And I have this, maybe it's a byproduct of depression or concussions or years of abuse or whatever, you know, or just a lot of trauma, a lot of being, you know, just different things in life. But I don't feel, I don't walk around with a tremendous amount of self-worth. I don't walk around loving myself. There are times, you know, I have these like perturbations of love where I feel like I can respect myself, but it doesn't happen all that often. And I don't just wake up feeling that way, and I don't go to bed feeling that way. In order to validate myself and to feel worthy, I have to engage in acts of service. So it 100% is spiritual for me. I will spiritually bankrupt myself if I'm not engaged in service, because my ego is overly active, and my ego tells me that I'm not good enough. It tells me I'm a piece of shit at the center of the universe. And the more, you know, the only way I can combat my ego is to be of service. And being of service really takes away from the burden of self, like that constant nagging burden of self, and allows me to kind of get some traction and feel better about myself, because I know what I'm doing, and I'm truthfully and wholeheartedly engaged in it. And I'm not serving, I mean, I am serving myself in that it helps bring me worth, but I'm serving other things, other people, other animals. And there's just something special about that. There's a reason why service is so important, like in the culture of America and in the world, because it really has the ability to cure people of depression. One of the key factors to depression and really just lack of joy, serenity, all of those things is service. Is we're so fractured and disconnected and lonely, and we don't think we have this you know, tragically unique syndrome where we all think we're fucking special.
Oh yeah, we're all like everybody gets a fucking blue ribbon.
Yeah, well, we're specially fucked up, you know, like,
yes.
Like, well, let me tell you about my special fucked up qualities, and you tell me about yours. And
Fantastic.
we're all just like, yeah, we're all just like a accumulation of a whole bunch of neuroses and psychoses.
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating because I'm a longtime student of A Course in Miracles. And what A Course in Miracles will say is, like, you know, the ego is obsessed with specialness. And it will try to make you special. The ego mind will try to make you special, either through superiority, which is I am better than everybody else. I'm really powerful, and like I'm, you know, you're a piece of shit, and I'm like the best. But the ego will also try to make you special. The Course doesn't say it this way. I'm paraphrasing, but it would say through your fucked upness. Like, I'm so fucked up. Exactly what you're talking about. Our victim stories, like, look how screwed up I am. And, you know, I do a lot of workshops, or in the past I have on grief. And I often say to people, like, we're not here to out-grief each other. Like, if Carol tells you about her dead kid, this isn't the time for you to, like, up the ante on, like, how fucked up your life is, right? Because we love those stories.
Yeah, before it's out of their mouth. Before they're done talking about themselves, the other person's going, whoa, let me tell you about mine.
Oh yeah. They love to be special. But it's also one of the ways that we keep ourselves from truly knowing ourselves is by latching onto the story of not being worthy. And so when you were talking about this, I was listening very intently, because this is the work that I do. I'm a spiritual mentor, and I really believe that spirit is part of the solution to why we have such a problem of disconnect and self-loathing, and whether that turns into depression, anxiety, addiction, like whatever. I really feel like the solution is totally knowing who we truly are. And whether you say that as your higher power, your highest self, a child of God, a part of the universe. I never get hung up on what you call it, but I really do have an attachment. That's why I do this work that I do. And I'm called to do the work that I do, is, you know, knowing the way that my mother suffered in the last moments of her life. She was beaten to death. I really just, part of the reason why I believe I'm on the planet right now is to help people know that they don't have to suffer, and that there's a better way, and that there's a different way. And so when I listen to your story, like I'm feeling really emotional right now, because it's like I sometimes say to my clients, like, I wish I could pop my eyes out and like pop them into your head, so like you could see yourself through the lens. And I'm sure people say that to you often, because I'm not, like, at the end of the day, it hurts some part of me I think we're all brothers and sisters, right? I call you brother all the time. So it hurts some part of my heart when you say that you go to bed not loving yourself, and that you wake up not loving yourself. Like it's like getting punched in the gut when I hear that. And nobody can change that for you. Like this is your work. But I just want you to hear me say that, like, and I know you know this, and there's something fucking weird about being a little famous too, because you do have a little bit of fame now, right? You have more than a little bit amount of fame. Is that it's really easy when you start to hear 1,000 times a day, you're a hero, all this work you're doing, you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing. But if the external vibe or frequency doesn't match tonally inside, it's just like Wonder Woman ricocheting the compliments. It's like not being able to be receptive. And
exactly. It's even worse than that.
I know. Rabindranath Tagore has this beautiful quote where he says, everything that belongs to you will come to you if you create the capacity to receive it. And I think this is the thing, is creating a capacity to receive the fact that you are, call it whatever you want to call it, a child of God, that you are fucking amazing, that you are doing this incredible work, that you are worthy. And look, I am so happy when I saw that. Like, I'm sure women everywhere, when they saw that you were engaged to Heather, were like, oh, dude's off the market, like whatever. I was so psyched for you. I was like, A, she's wicked hot, number one. She's smart. Like, she's a go-getter. I loved it. And I was just so happy for you, because I was like, at some point, the veil of the illusion of you feeling separate from the divine, the creator, God, source, or whatever. I'm like, maybe we're gonna start like boom.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and it's happening, And I think welcoming her and then welcoming Shy into my life, it's impossible for me to stay on that spiritual island, sequestered in my own shit anymore, because it's and I really do feel like I feel like I'm graduating from that. I'm in the process of graduating from that self-loathing in terms of it being a pattern. You're talking about the feedback loop of like sympathy or kind of the sympathy narrative. And it's been, my story has been my story for so long. It has been that significant thing that I guess makes me different, and that people can relate to, because everyone's had someone suffer in recovery or addiction or alcoholism, and also people appreciate the vulnerability. They appreciate me talking candidly and openly and not pulling any punches. So a lot of times I feel like I have to reflect on the sadder parts of life and the sadder parts of being me, whereas lately and recently I don't want to be that for my daughter anymore. I don't want to be you know what I mean? I certainly don't want her to think that that's how she gets what she needs, because it is how I got what I needed for a long time, and it's a dangerous pattern. Self-pity is a dangerous.
Oh my God. You know why? Because in this fucking world, in the illusion, we are rewarded. We are rewarded for our smallness and our brokenness.
100%.
I don't play that game. Like we get you. Wait, you just say you don't understand?
No, I get it.
Oh yeah. We're really rewarded. We're rewarded for our stories of what happened to us. And they're also a great way for us to have excuses. But some part of you, this is what I'm saying, like some part of you stop playing that game, because some part of you is making very different choices and is showing up in a bigger and bigger way. Like that's the part, like this is the rise. I always talk about Rocky's one of my champion stories, because if he had just stayed a bum, like punching like hunks of meat in a locker collecting for that bookie, that would have been a drag of a story, right? Yeah. When he starts running through the streets, rock, and he climbs it, like that's when the story gets interesting. The rise is when it gets interesting. And so to me, what you're doing, people meet you. Like if you think about the story as like, down in the depths is like the bottom. That's where most people tend to relate. But I think when you start to get right with yourself, when you start to get clean and right and smart and healthy and whatever, I call it when you take the elevator, if you're lucky enough to take the elevator to a higher floor, to the top floor, you better fucking send that sucker back down for the other people who are coming up behind you. And I think that your work does this in so many ways. And I think that people look at you sometimes as like, oh, the dog guy, like you're sometimes called dog boy, right? Or something like that. Yeah. But what you're doing isn't just applicable to animals or whatever. It's so human and heart-based, and it's really powerful. And I think like I want to talk about the, because I know how near and dear to your heart. I say it's near and dear to my heart, but obviously you're the creator of the program. It's way more near and dear to your heart. The Pawsitive change program, because I think, and you know, the guy that murdered my mother, he went to jail, and I have over the phone mentored somebody from prison. He was in prison in California, actually, which was really powerful experience for me. And
You know
I
what
think
prison?
He's way more north. He's up toward in the Bay Area.
Like Solana or Folsom?
Not Folsom. Yeah, but it was he's out now and he's doing great, and it was an amazing experience for me to be able to have that. But one of the things I think is that, you know, it's really unfortunate and unfair to define somebody, you know, by their worst mistake or their worst moment. And I think a lot of people, I'm like, they didn't fucking end up there because they had the best parents and the best childhood and the best economic situation. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't usually end up there because things were going great in your life before that. So can you talk a little bit just about about the program and why you love it so much, and what some of the powerful kind of takeaways you're getting from this?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to touch back on another thing with the feeling
Please
sorry
do.
for yourself. I for so long while I was addicted and drinking, that was how I got what I needed. You know, if you make people feel sorry for you, you can get what you need. People will send you things. They will give you stuff. They will take pity on you, and you'll become a charity case. And I see there's a lot of really successful pages out there that focus on the, you know, more uplifting, proactive aspect of being positive, not looking for sympathy, but just being positive and persevering in spite of all that you're dealing with. And those are the pages that are really, I don't know, it's almost like a battle on social media. I see the two, you know, like I saw one post this morning from someone that I probably will stop following, but it was, it had to do with, I've got to go do this, you know, it involved driving a bunch of animals far away for treatment. And I've got to, you know, I had to put down an animal that they had welcomed into their own home. Long story short, it was just, the whole thing was poor me. The whole thing was poor me. And it was a situation that the person had created for themselves. And it's actually a pretty beautiful situation. You know, yes, it involves death, but there's a lot to be had in death, and there's a lot to gain from death, and there's a lot to teach people through death. And there's a lot, you know, mourning is a great experience to be able to get to mourn. You know, I lost my grandfather yesterday, and to think about him and to be reflecting on George all day positively is great. I could get on social media and just do a depressing post about it.
I saw your video, and George is beautiful, and it's Heather's grandpa, right? Right on her side of the family. And so I was going to wait till a little later when we were wrapping up to mention it, but I'm glad you're bringing it up. So
I don't know where I was going with that, other than it is so, you know, those posts get a ton of love. And every comment is, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for you. And you're an angel, and I'm sorry. And that's how it's like on a lot of those pages. Just, I'm sorry. And I feel like there's got to be a middle ground where we can express empathy for what people are going through, because these are challenging times, without having the primary emotion communicated be sympathy.
Well, that's a transactional post though, Zach. It's what you're feeling, right? So as a writer, here's the thing. As a writer, when you write something, especially if you're writing something awful or horrible, like, you know, a murder, a rape, or like da-da-da-da-da. One of the key things is you always have to say, I always say to my writers who are my clients, I say, you've got to let your audience have their own experience. So you don't come out and say, oh, my rapist was an asshole, this guy's a motherfucker. Like, you don't tell them that. You just say what happened. Let your audience kind of decide. So you're not hooking. You're not trying to manipulate, right? So those kinds of posts, those are designed to do exactly what you're talking about. They are designed because that person is either not doing enough self-care, they're addicted to attention, poor me, the martyr, the victim, whatever the fuck's going through that person's head. But it's designed to do exactly what you're saying, which is get likes, and to be told you're an angel and you're the hero and you're so good.
Sympathetic narcissism.
Exactly. Totally. And so but here's the thing. You can tell who's picking up what's really going on based on responses, right? So like like me, I would see that and I would be like, fucking please, like, even though it's awful your dog died or whatever, you were in that situation, I just won't play. Like, I don't reward that behavior because I see it very clearly and it feels like a hook is being put in me. And I'm like, no. I don't play that game. Like, I'm 50 now. I've seen enough. I see it. But look, when I was a kid, I played the dead mother card. I know exactly if I didn't want to turn in my homework, like, I get how it was done. I knew how to get attention, but that stopped being fucking interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's not interesting to me.
I had a buddy of mine whose mom died and she turned it around in the most perfect way. And she would constantly poke fun at it. And we would be at a fast food restaurant and they'd be like, oh my God. She'd be like, hey, I ordered a ranch with my French fries. Did you not include it? And they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. She'd be like, oh, no big deal. My mom only died last month.
Right.
You know? And then we'd be like, you know, the parking would cost too much. She's like, oh, you you clearly have no heart. My mom died last month. Just joking around with it constantly.
Yes.
That was the way to wear it. You know?
Yeah, and it is. And I think there is a way, but I think it takes some spiritual maturity and I think it takes some personal insight to understand that, like, look, hey, you know what? You and everybody else, like, the details of the suffering, it might be different. The details of the story might be different, you know, but like, and here's the thing, as long as we're in these human bodies, pain is inevitable. But like, suffering is optional. Suffering is optional because it's all about your state of mind. And I'm not talking about little kids in countries where they're at the mercy of having no food, no water. Like, that's true, blue, genuine, heartbreaking suffering. But as adults, when we hit a certain age, even the stories that we choose to keep telling ourselves about what happened, quote unquote, to us as children is a choice that we're making. And I think, you know, I call it, you know, transforming your story to your glory. That's what it's all about. And it was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, because it's not like, oh, well, Zach's got it 100% figured out. He never has a bad day. He doesn't still have self-doubt. I'm not worthy. But in spite of, or like, even with that sometimes doubt, it hasn't rendered you powerless. You are not paralyzed. You are still making choices. And it's so important that service piece and part of how you serve. And I just want to circle back, and I don't mean to keep pushing it on you, but I'm so excited about this program because something that I read that you posted, maybe this morning or last night, is that men who go into prison and then get out with no structure or program or anything to look forward to or to be of service to, you said ending up back in jail, it's like something like 80 or 85%. And so you're seeing with your program of taking dogs who are otherwise, as I call it, on death row, who are going to be euthanized, putting them in prisons with an opportunity for men. And I watch all those videos. Like, I'm addicted. I have mixed feelings about social media, but I'm obsessed with the positive change.
Because you're watching, I mean, from a therapist or from a person who's engaged in spiritual wellness and discovery, you're watching these people make Herculean steps forward in their life, you know, where they're maturing before your eyes in such profound, large ways that most people out here in the real world, or a lot of people, aren't willing to go through. So they've become totally spiritually deconstructed and emotionally deconstructed to almost a point of zero, and then are building themselves back up. And it's really gutsy to do it in a prison, because
it's
most
ballsy as it is ballsy as get out. And I'm sorry, I get so excited, I didn't interrupt you, but it's what it is. In A Course in Miracles, we talk about what a miracle really is a shift in perception. It's a shift in perception from fear to love. That's what a miracle is. It's really a shift in how you see and perceive yourself and perceive your brothers and sisters in the world around you, right? So when I'm watching these men in these videos on graduation day, or just learning how to use their body language and like all this stuff, like, I like sob, but with a smile on my face, like, the whole time. It is miraculous. It is miraculous.
And it also lets you know that it gives you permission to love them, because you see them working so hard and succeeding, that it's validation that you're allowed to love these people, because we still have this cultural restriction, this tendency that's been bred into us to not embrace inmates. That these are prisoners, these are people capable of great harm, they've perpetrated great harm, and they should be very warily dealt with with extreme caution. And so they're really just setting this stage for so much growth, and it always motivates me to grow. That's the weirdest thing,
dude.
There's so much transformation in there happening. And I wanted to think about one thing, because it's really interesting, your perception on suffering, because that's not how I've historically grown up with it. So I want to hear more about how you talk about it, because for me, like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning was my book, because it basically validates that that there is validity and purpose in the suffering, that there is purpose in your suffering. And I felt like I suffered for so long that it felt good to know that it kind of gave me the permission to take pride in my suffering. Not like to make the world understand and empathize with my suffering, but just that, because no one really knows your inner dialogue. And so for me, it's like, look, if anyone really knew a lot of the darkness and the suicidal thoughts and the things that go on in my mind, I don't know how they would view me, but the way I want to think about it is that it is a struggle, that I am struggling, I'm trudging forward, and I am suffering. So maybe it's the synonym I would use is struggle instead of suffer. Like maybe that's more what it is, that you don't have to suffer, but you have to struggle. Because I take pride in some of it, because I know it's really difficult, and I know some of the things I've gone through and persevered through are really hard, and so I want to.
I have a lot of thoughts about that. So this is why I like to have conversations, because you can't just do a spiritual mic drop and say oh, this is it. So what I mean by that is this. I always say it like this. Suffering is a really fucking fantastic teacher until you get a better teacher. Because we forget that we can learn through joy too. We forget that we can learn through happiness too. And so I wouldn't trade my struggles and my shit for my job, for anything, because it has made me, it is, I said, I used to act really tough, dukes up, I'm a masshole, I'm a kid from Lawrence, Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Tough kid. And I said, well, I only needed the external tough act, until I understood that internally I was strong. And there's a difference between tough and strength. And so when I understood who walks beside me, when I understood who I really was, it's not that I have no fear. I talk about the fearless flow. It's not that I have no fear, but my fear is way dialed back, because I know I'm not doing this stuff alone. My whole thing is, it's not to not make the struggle and the suffering important or valuable, because I think that's how we mainly learn. But I also don't want to throw away the fact that there's another way to learn.
Yeah.
And that we can start to focus on, I see you with, playing reggae and you're dancing with your daughter in that moment. And I think there's just as much value in this.
God, that's such a good point, because, I tend to think all of my growth has to come through strife.
Yes, and no, it doesn't. A Course in Miracles says you can learn through joy or pain.
There was more revealed to me. I mean, if I truly were to pay attention to that exact moment you're talking about, there's a couple where I just picked up my daughter and we started to have these dance offs in the kitchen, and what I learned is that that's far more enjoyable for me, and I get more out of that than I do just about anything.
Okay, can I ask you? Yeah, go ahead. Can I ask you a question? I know I'm being really rude and interrupting, because it's when something comes in hot, I have to pay attention.
You're a fucking masshole over here.
Yeah, I know, I'm fucking interrupting you over here. So when you're dancing with her, what are the three top things that you're feeling? If you don't overthink it, what's the three top things?
I'm feeling separated from all of the nonsense. 100% separated from all these things that bog me down.
All right, can I just stop you?
Yeah.
Look at how your mind immediately went to, when I'm in this joyous dancing state with my daughter, I'm feeling separated from all the nonsense, instead of saying, I feel connected to all that's good.
Yeah.
See how your mind just picks up, because it's just conditioning. It's just conditioning.
Well, I feel like the negative is Velcroed onto me almost all the time.
Okay. So, all right. Can we pick a better image?
Yeah. I'm working on it. I really do feel transitional, it has been transitioning, but that part of it's just the work's overwhelming, and I'm constantly enveloped by it. So
you mean the work? Wait, do you mean personal work or with the dogs and stuff?
Just work with the dogs. Marley,
yeah.
That work is so, it's 96% of my time. And so, you know, when I do get those breaths of fresh air with my daughter, I feel extreme joy because I don't feel connected to any of that work stuff. You know, I feel totally connected to her.
I love
instead
that.
of connecting to that stuff. That's why it's so, and there's just so much, it's so much more real, those connections, you know?
Yeah, dude.
I'm actually sitting in her,
is that your sweetie?
chair.
Is that your sweetie?
No, this is her chair.
I thought some. Oh, I thought she came in because I wanted to say hi to her.
No, she's in Everett, Washington.
Oh.
The passing of her grandpa.
Yeah, I mean, so Zach, I mean, I think that's the thing, right? Is like, I have so much. I know one of my beloved friends, does dog rescue here in New Hampshire. She's rescued over 3,000 dogs, and her husband both do it. And it's like out of her house, and she has like the rough house, which is where they board the dogs and they rehabilitate. I mean, and I just know, like, I know firsthand. I volunteer there sometimes, so I know firsthand, like, you can't do this work and come out unscathed. You know, it's kind of like how police often see, the worst of humanity, the fucking worst of humanity. And especially,
we have people come stay with us, and they always, every single time, what they say is within hours, they're completely overwhelmed, and they just repeat, I don't know how you do this. You know, they're just,
some part of you, I think, and so it's so fascinating to me because I think that the part of you that has suffered so much, the gift, I always say the gift of suffering from me, I'm not going to speak for you, the gift of suffering from me in my own suffering is very quickly, it's one of the reasons why I'm vegan. It's very quickly easy for me to identify another person's or another being's suffering. And so it has taught me great compassion, and it has taught me to expand my viewpoint of how the ego would love to have me view people, like you were talking about these incarcerated men. I really get that we're all children of the divine. I really get that we sometimes are very fucking clumsy and we make big mistakes and we do awful things. But there's something in particular about doing something awful to yourself, poisoning yourself with shit, cutting, harming, self-harm, versus taking it out on a weaker being, a smaller being, whether it's a child or an animal that has no voice and can't defend against you. So in the work that you do, you also see some of the worst of humanity, our lowest level of inflicting ourselves onto something that can't fight back. And I say prayers for you guys all the time. And I mean, I say prayers for all of us, all of humanity, but I'm just kind of like, I really wanted to ask you if you could share with the viewers, like, and I would say that Dancing with Shy in the Kitchen is one of those things that you do to, some people might say it to combat the forces of darkness, but I would say, how do you keep the light on? How do
what
you?
I used to do is I used to always write. I don't write enough, but that was how I processed it all, is I would write. And I would try to focus on something positive or what I knew the end result was going to be. Too often we focus on the obvious, which is, like with Hooch had his tongue cut out, his ears cut off, and people want to focus on that most of the time. They want to focus on, if I could find this guy, I would kill him in the following ways. And I just don't, while that gets all of our dopamine and, all of our
adrenaline
flowing, it's not helpful in any way, shape, or form. And so there was a time in my life where I was, much more violent, and would have, every one of these situations would have been a, form a posse, kind of go out and find these people and address it accordingly. And it's just not how I'm wired anymore. My focus goes into caring for what's in front of me, what's at hand, and the task at hand is caring for these dogs. So the best way I can move forward is to put all that frustration into caring for the dogs, and into talking about showcasing why whomever did that to this, showcasing why animals are so special, and how resilient they are, and how they can get through something horrific, like it's a little teeny speed bump, and I just really I feel sorry for people that just want to focus on the negative, and they want to pull. I mean, it's like
it's actually easier to do.
It's part of our tribalism, and we want to organize into packs that want to go, affect vengeance and all the rest of it. And we want to feel camaraderie by organizing with other people who are willing to go kill some people who hurt a dog. And really what I wish more people reacted pragmatically and did something that we knew was going to help. So if you see something that frustrates you, get involved.
Exactly.
Don't just get pissed off. Get involved with something,
Put your money where your mouth is, man, and let your anger actually motivate you into taking some sort of action.
Yeah, I mean, I get angry, but I'm at the shelter all the time and I see these people. So it's far easier for us to demonize people. And, oh my God, I can't believe you surrendered your 14-year-old Chihuahua that's been with you your whole life, and what a piece of shit. What kind of evil human being would do that? And then you realize the person's got diabetes and their husband just died and they don't have any money and they're on a fixed income, and you just go, come on, people, why the fuck would we want to go out of our way to make the situation any worse than it is? Can't we just objectively look at it and understand that we have a life that needs us? And then we can address the rest of it if we think it'll help culturally, and we can educate. We can use the opportunity to educate, 100%. But we don't have to call people out. We don't have to, take a bunch of low blows and really malign people and ostracize them publicly. It's just not worth it. Those are always the biggest hits on social media, but I just don't think it's that important.
Dude, I love everything that you're saying right now, and I think it's so important. It's actually about keeping the focus where we can be helpful and not harmful. Yeah. And I think it's really easy, like you said. And this is the thing, if people just I always say to my clients, man, like one of the greatest things you can do is to approach your life and your brothers and sisters in this world with curiosity instead of judgment. Because the ego loves to judge. That's its full-time gig. That is it.
It's natural, yeah.
It's your ego loves to. It is constantly judging whether or not I want to drink this water or have lemonade, right?
On a regular basis. I'm like,
not even regular, Zach. Nonstop. Nonstop. The ego is just chattering out its preferences, its judgment, its bullshit. But we never know what somebody's story is. We never know what's really going on unless we take the time to sit down and talk to them. And so many dogs are surrendered and we don't know why it happens. And it's like me, like I always say to myself, like, if I just let myself sit and think about the billions of animals that are slaughtered annually, right, for people to eat them and stuff like that, I would become paralyzed. So I'm like, okay, I'm one person. What can I do? Yeah. And then I do what I can do so that I don't feel guilty, like so that I can feel like I'm making a difference in the world. And it's the same thing. Like, I love that POV that you keep the focus on where the love is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I've
that's
got to,
beautiful.
We've got this program, Final Gift, where we render last rites to dying shelter dogs. We take them in and we give them a last hurrah. And then when we euthanize them, we do it as a family, and we all get together and we bury them, and we'll try to take them out for food or to the beach or to the park, or it depends on how sick they are, but we give them a real dignified out. And that final gift is we humanely euthanize them at the ranch and bury them under the poplar tree. And I've seen another approach to that, which was, so that's our focus, is we take in these dogs from the shelter that are terminally ill. It's called the final gift. We take them through the whole program, and then it ends with them passing away, but it's a very kumbaya, wonderful, emotive time for all of us. Conversely, that same program was executed differently, where, it was one person who took the dog into their house, and the dog ended up dying a couple weeks later, and it was a real, it was a real ode to the piece of shit parents who used to have the dog. So the dog died, which we knew it would die, and it was a big FU to the previous parents. It was a real sob story about how sad the person was that the dog had died, even though the person knew the dog was terminally ill. So it was, instead of it being the opportunity of, hey, I took a dog in for 2 weeks, gave it a glorious experience, and how special it was for me to be able to offer this, to get to do this. It was, someone should feel terribly sorry for me because this dog died, and I'm over here flagellating myself emotionally with this death.
Because it's not about the dog. I mean, people, like, you can see right through it. Like, you can really
100%.
see, like, yeah, it's
100% about that. That's that sympathetic narcissism. It's people are trying to gain points in the world with, it's like they're applying for divinity. Like, they're trying to get through the pearly gates. And there's this constant competition of what can I do to show like I care the most.
You are not kidding.
You know?
But I think that's part of why people also struggle with grief. You know, I have a lot of clients that I work with who have had tragedies and traumas and lost people and sometimes children. And I say to them, you know, you feel like you're doing, you know, you're dead. I said, we don't abandon our dead here, but we also don't have to like build altars to our suffering about them forever for the rest of your life. You're allowed to have days where you feel better, like, you know, and I think there's something to this feeling like, well, if I start to feel better, if I start to heal, then it means I didn't love them as much. Like I've got to prove by my suffering and my wailing and my self-flagellation, all this stuff, like how much I cared. And I'm like, hey, look, nobody is requiring your suffering but you and your ego mind.
Certainly not the dead person or animal.
Exactly.
That you're honoring. That person wants you to go live it up.
Dude.
The person doesn't want you sitting like, wait, you're celebrating my death by
being like miserable and making it right. I'm like,
this is terrible.
I don't
What's
think
wrong with this picture?
Yeah. If I was still like suffering at 50, like my mother died when I was 12. I'm like, I think my mother would be really fucking bummed and disappointed. She'd be like, still you're carrying my dead body around behind you.
The next time I introduce you, I'm going to introduce you as, yeah, my friend Karen Kenney. Her mom died when she was 12. Yeah,
exactly. You know, and it's funny.
That extra sympathy right off the bat.
Oh, no, trust me. It's like, yeah. And, you know, it's funny because of the work that I do, and I am a storyteller, I have to tell that story a lot, but I don't tell it from the wound anymore. I don't tell it from that place because it's like, it's everything that I took. It's the glory that I took from the story and all the golden nuggets and all the empathy and compassion and strength and grit. I would not be who I am today if I hadn't lost her. In that, I say that death is awful and brutal and tragic as it was ultimately a gift. It was ultimately a gift to me. And so that's what I look at. And I look at the work that you do in the world, Zach, and it's a gift. It's a gift for those animals. It's a gift for the rest of us to see what's possible.
I view liver failure the same way. A lot of people have this tendency to feel really sorry for me. They're like, oh my God.
Oh, I don't feel sorry for you at all.
No, there's a variety of reasons I don't. One, if my liver hadn't failed, I would have never got better. I would have 100,000% be dead. And
Amen.
two, you know, none of the rest of this stuff would have happened. You know? I mean,
Exactly.
I'm incredibly grateful for liver
dude.
failure. Like you know, and for all of this stuff, I'm grateful that I had the issues that I did as a child that I went through. I think it's put me in a position to relate to more people, connect with more people, and maybe make a difference, you know. But going back to, you kind of gave me some insight that's going to be fun to run with, is I felt this shift that started Sunday, and I woke up and I've been really struggling lately and not sleeping. I slept Sunday night and I thought, you know, I feel really good today. I feel good. Why do I feel good? I should feel shitty. My brain is telling me to feel shitty. I have this pattern of feeling shitty, but I'm going to run with it and feel good. And then I felt good Monday, and then I felt good Tuesday, and then I felt good Wednesday, and now Thursday's here and I still feel good. And I got some sleep last night, and life is still in session. There's a lot of really heavy shit going on.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I'm, for the first time, giving myself permission to not feel shitty. And that's always been an interesting statement that people tell those of us who suffer with depression is, you know, you got to put effort towards not feeling shitty. And I think it's hard to it's hard to view that statement, but it's true. And I really put forth that every time it's poked its head through, I've really consciously put that away and said, no, that's not I'm trying to constantly tell myself it's not my narrative anymore. That's not my story. I don't have to be this depressed, insomniac, recovering alcoholic. That I can be something else that still has those experiences, you know.
But I love love, and it's really actually wicked funny. And humor is one of my big three. I think there's so much healing through humor and laughter, and you can find just about anything funny when there's enough time and distance and healing that happens. But something that you said that's like really important is that giving yourself permission to feel good, like, oh, it's okay, like I'm allowed to have like 5 good days in a row, is like really important.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh, hold on, let me just like, I got to rewind something else that you said that was really important. And I'm like, I want to make sure that I focus on that. I don't know. It's gone now. It slipped, right. But I do think that what you're doing is you're giving us an example of, oh wait, it's trying to come back in. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. So your situation, like you were talking about it, and it's like, I always say to people, we don't have to abandon our stories. When I say rewrite your story or let go of your story, it's like when you say I'm not that story anymore, I'm like, that story will always be a part of your narrative, part of your story, but it doesn't have to define you. So I say it like, hey, life situation, not life sentence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's life situation that informed us, it inspired us, it influenced us, but it doesn't have to define us for the rest of our lives. That's what I wanted to say, because
yeah, exactly.
I think you're like, you are such a comeback kid in so many ways. Like you're like, you're somebody that me too. And I think I see a lot of myself, like I say, like different, but samesies. Like that's how I feel about you, that I have a deep connection and reverence for you and with you and for you. And I just love what you're doing in the world, and I'm trying to get you out of here on time.
Thanks.
So
well, right back at you. I really, and when I hear your zeal and your stoke and how excited you are about what we're doing, and that makes it, it really resonates with me. Because I see people get excited, but it means a lot for someone like you, a person I have great respect for, to understand all that we're actually doing, like to get the nuance, and you have like the data and you're aware of exactly what we're doing. That's really great.
You're healing the world in your own powerful way. And I think that it took you having to become so deeply sensitive to suffering for you to be able to become an open conduit and channel for this level of work to come through. And
and that's what I look forward to in the future is allowing myself to be like exalted one level up from that injured, trauma-ridden person who's talking about their story, to one step up to a person who's healed through some of that and is ready to kind of be more of a beacon of strength for people, as opposed to just somebody who's gotten through a tough time, But so becoming someone who's gotten through a tough time and come out the other end happy.
But I think, yes, dude, because, inner peace and happiness are your natural inheritance. So if we're not feeling those things, that's a sign that we've taken a detour into fear. And a detour into fear is just like you're stuck in the ego mind. So I think of it like this. Like I always talk to my clients, like your mind is like a duplex. And on the left side of the duplex, like, is when you're out of your right mind. You're on the left side of the duplex with the drunk, crazy neighbors. And they're always like throwing keggers and there's shit on the lawn. It's a fucking mess and it's loud. And nobody's sleeping and everybody's just like getting fat and messy and it's gross. Right? On the right side of your mind is where I would say like spirit lives, or Holy Spirit, or the divine, or your spiritual team, your helpers. I don't care what you call them. But on the right side of your mind, where you're not fucking insane, the part of your mind that is in communion with the part of you that's not mental, right? That spiritual place, it's on the right side of our mind. And in every moment, with every thought, word, and action, we're choosing which space, which teacher, which voice we're listening to, drunk, crazy neighbors, or spirit. And I say, but what we forget when we're over here at the kegger is that we could go across the hall and borrow some sugar anytime we want to.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we're in the fear crazy place, we just have to have the clarity of the pause, like just a pause, a breath to go, like I could choose differently. So I just want to encourage you to understand that, like, you're already doing it, brother. Like, you're already doing it. You're already exalted. You're already, like, it's just about claiming it, because like you're doing it. And I can't know your inner dialogue and the shit that's going on in there all the time. And if, I always say to my clients, like, if I had a billboard that just kind of projected my thoughts on it all the time, I'd have no friends or clients, right? So I get it, but I just want you to know that I see you through such a loving and beautiful and encouraging lens. You're impacting me. You're influencing and inspiring me. I always say, and I really mean this, like, people are like, oh, you're a spiritual person, you probably don't like money. I said, fuck that. I want to make a ton of money because I want to be able to one day write Zach and Marley's Mutts a big fat check. And I want to write my friend Jordan at Conscious Muscle down in Florida and his animal rescue a big fat check. My friends at Peace and Pause, it's like, I'm working to work because there are causes that are working and doing stuff that I love. And I'm telling you, dude, I hold that vision that someday I'm going to make a little chunk of change and I can be able to gift back to you in ways that might be helpful. for what you're doing, because I just love you, and I love your little family, and I follow everybody, and I just go ahead.
That was perfect. That was so perfect.
Oh,
Thank you.
It's true, and I believe that I believe and I know you know this. Well, I think you know this. I shouldn't make assumptions, but my spiritual team has said to me loud and clear so many times, Cora Rose was sent to you like a little angel, man. She was sent to you like that dog was beelining right for your heart.
Yeah. She's with me all the time. She's been incredible. I mean, the greatest joy of all that is that I get to bring her around and change people's days fundamentally. You know, all they have to do is lay eyes on her for a second, or get to pet her, or get to hold her, and their whole, it might change she leaves such a positive streak that their entire, the happiness quotient of their entire day is changed. And then because their happiness quotient is changed, that of those around them is changed. Because we're all codependent.
Because you know what? We all have a little Cora inside of us, and she's just a reflection and a mirror back to what's within us.
Yeah,
she's the unkomplicated, unconfused part of ourselves, that because she's the embodiment. Yes. She's the embodiment of love. It's all simple with Cora. It's like I'm either wrestling with Henry, or I'm like eating poop in the field.
She doesn't need to sit down with Karen and have Karen reiterate why she should enjoy her day, and why
yes, because Cora's just fucking Cora. She gets it. She gets who she is, right? So I just love that, dude. I got to get you out of here because I don't want you to be late for what.
Well, hey, I love you. I love you, and thank you.
I love you. And can you just tell people very quickly, like 2 ways to get in touch with you or to find your stuff?
You can find me on Instagram at Zach Skow, also at Marley's Mutts, and on Facebook, Zach Skow, ZACHSKOW, and Pawsitive Change, our prison program, is just Pawsitive Change, PAW, Pawsitive Change program on Instagram and on Facebook, and then marleysmutts.org. Marleysmutts.org is the website. So.
Awesome, brother. And so when this goes live on my website and we push it out in a couple of weeks, they'll get all the links, how to find you, what to do. And I'm going to...
All right, and let's do it again.
Dude, I would love it. Hey, look can we pinky swear? I want to find a way to come out and visit you guys on the ranch sometime. Can I do that?
Yeah, 100%. You can come stay. I have a place for you to stay. You're good to go.
Awesome. I would love it. All right, brother, go out. Keep doing good things wherever you go. Be a blessing. You already are.
All right, my sister. Take it easy.
Okay, honey. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KENNEYLIVE. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.